Well, hi there, just taking a quick stop as we're out and about today on the KTM 1290 Adventure S, looking at a little bit about what the bike's like, talking about some of the accessories that are fitted to it and having a bit of a ride about as well. So just a quick look around just as we begin. So I've got the accessory lights on, as you can see there, and we can just switch those off and then you can see it without those on. But it does make a difference with the daytime running lights there obviously, and the accessory lights on do together give you that little bit more visibility on the road. Whether or not you're supposed to do it, they are classed as auxiliary lights on this bike, not as fog lights, so it doesn't have to be foggy to use them. And my view is that, you know, you try and be as visible as you can during the day. Also got the full Touratech luggage system on there, the panniers, the top box. A little bit of fiddling around to get those set up in the first place, with particularly getting all the key lock barrels coded to the key. That was a bit faffy. I did it myself. And also these locking bits here and here on the panniers were a bit tight, still are a bit tight on that one in particular. So I need to keep looking at those, see why that is. I know it's something to do with the frame not being perfectly level at the top where they've done the weld on it, and I think that's just stopping it being pushed down correctly. So I might have to just use a bit of a rubber mallet to level that out, but then that will be fine. On here got the Garmin XT2 sat-nav. Now this is at the minute on the Power Parts original accessory that you can buy from KTM, and it's just like a plastic bracket that is adjustable, but to be honest it's pretty flimsy actually. I'm not that impressed with it, and so I've ordered the Touratech steel one, and that's coming in various parts over the course of the next few days, so I'll get that fitted and I'll show you the difference. I think that is going to be more stable. I've seen other people fit it on YouTube and it looks like a better deal. I've put the old RAM mount and there's a camera mount there, but I haven't brought the second camera with me yet today. So I've got that set up. I'm hoping the sound on this system is working all right, and it continues to work all right, because I've had a few issues with it when I've been recording previous videos. Got the ergo seat, the heated one at the front, the standard one at the back. It is a little bit better than the original that comes with the bike, but I'm just at the minute kind of working through. See, this is kind of the first day I've been out on it since I had some of these accessories put on, or I fitted them. What else have I got on here? Got some grip puppies on, which I tend to put as a bit of a standard thing on bikes anyway, and got the GPS, talked about that. Got this tank bag that is a KTM tank bag, but that's basically an SW Motec tank bag with their fitting ring that they obviously build for this bike. And I guess it's all right for if I was going touring or something, because it's like an expandable bag. But just for about town or the short day runs that I tend to do most of the time, I probably do need a smaller tank bag. I've got all the other range of SW Motec tank bags, but not with this Pro system that they've moved to these days. It's got the Evo system on. So it's like everything else, it's amended. I'm just going to turn off the power on there so we don't flatten the battery off. Pleased with the GPS, very big screen, the XT2. Talk about that a little bit more in detail in a separate video, but I think that's probably about all to mention. I got the radiator guards on the front, they're just tucked in. I don't know if you can see them with the camera here. Oh, and I got the Acro slip-on exhaust as well at the back. Now, one thing to mention about this bike was I didn't think in the first service period, that's the time before you actually get to the point where they do the first service, that it was as powerful as the Multistrada 1260S. Didn't feel like it. Didn't feel like it had the same amount of torque, particularly as you were getting up through the gears in the mid-range. Didn't feel like it had that same oomph to do overtaking. However, since the first service, that's all changed. It seems to be almost a different bike. Sounds slightly different through the exhaust, and definitely power delivery wise seems different. So I don't know if there's some process where they do something with it that actually upgrades or restricts, I suppose, the power during that earlier part up until the first service. So I don't know if anybody knows that. Didn't actually ask them that question, but I just noticed that the quite significant, probably 25% difference that it had after the first service. Right then, so out and about we are now. It's a bit of a weird day today. The weather forecast is sort of predicting that it's going to have some rain at some points throughout the day, and what I'm trying to do is kind of navigate around those rain sort of spots, if you like. So I'm heading down towards Chesterfield. I'm going to go down to CMC Motorcycles in Claycross, Chesterfield, just for a bit of a little nosy round there. I'll grab some food there, probably at McDonald's, somewhere like that, and just have a nice steady runabout. So just as we're approaching the sort of top end here of Sheffield, not the best roads for demonstrating the rideability of this bike. I probably should have set the camera up a little bit earlier, but hopefully just gives you an idea and me the opportunity to talk a little bit about the bike and my initial kind of thoughts on it, really, because I've not done a lot. Done 696 miles on it, but like a big chunk of that was going to do the first thing which I wanted to do in the first service sort of run-up, was get the tyres changed. So it comes as standard as stock with these Mitas or Mitas tyres, M-I-T-A-S, and they're okay. I mean, they were okay-ish. I only ever have ridden this in the dry so far. They seem to be okay, but a lot of people on YouTube, even the kind of moto journalists, were saying how in the wet they didn't perform that well. So I thought, right, I know which tyres I like. I like the Pirelli Scorpion Trail 2s because they were previously on the other Multistrada 1260S that I had, and they perform really well, so I'm going to get some of those. So managed to find somebody who actually had them in stock, but they were down in Coventry and or just somewhere around Birmingham area, can't quite remember, and they fitted them for me. Really good work they did. Can't quite remember the name of the shop. If I remember it, I'll try and put it in the comments or put a little note on screen or something, but they did some really good work. They fitted those tyres, but in going all the way down to Coventry, which was a lot of, on the way there, a lot of motorway miles, to be honest, didn't really get to feel the bike very much because motorways and motorbikes, not really. I mean, yeah, you get to feel how it might be on a touring holiday, but put quite a few miles on it just on that trip. So this is kind of the first trip out that I've had since the first service, and just getting to sort of feel my way around the bike again. And at the same time, as you probably saw in my previous video, I've got the Multistrada 1260S now as well, so I've got two bikes and they're both twins, and so there is like this similarity between them but differences between them. So I'm going to get out and hopefully have a bit of a run, as I say, today, if the weather stays reasonably good. So mentioned the first service on it, mentioned that it does feel like it has more power now somehow. don't know what that's all about, and whether or not there is something specifically that they do as part of that first service that kind of unrestricts it in some way. And it also, just the engine tone sounds and the exhaust tone sounds a little bit richer. I don't know, maybe it's something to do with fueling or some upgrade they do on the software, or nothing at all, and it's just completely psychological. But I kind of doubt that somehow, because I did have some concerns when I first got this bike pre-first service, when I compared it with the Multistrada 1260S, that it didn't feel like it had enough power. It was just not the same as the Multi whatsoever. So it is kind of in that ballpark now. It does feel kind of similar. Now, of course, this has got the Acro exhaust on, but it hasn't got the full Termi racing exhaust on that the Multistrada has. So maybe that plus the up map on the Multi gives that the edge over this. I think it does. Just in terms of that torque and power, that feeling of thrust that you get when you put the throttle in. It does work well with the idea as well of going touring on it, and next year we'll definitely look at, I think, doing a few trips maybe to different places in Europe, or maybe do a sort of a city to city trip or something like that. Don't know, I have to think about that and do that sort of sometime maybe next summer. I went for, and not, you know, clearly it would seem that most people go for the orange and black version of this bike, and I went for this grey and white version, which, given this bike is sort of supposed to be partly usable off-road, I probably wouldn't have gone for the white and grey version if it were to be that it was going to be used off-road. Just wondering what was going on there. There's clearly an ambulance there with blues flashing, and the woman at the traffic lights was just sitting there blocking him. She didn't move. I do wonder sometimes nowadays when they're doing sort of training and stuff for driving, and don't know, you know, I don't want to extend it to riding motorbikes, but just let's talk about driving. Whether they teach them basic things like that, you know, you're sat at a set of traffic lights, move out the way, let the emergency vehicle through. So I'm not going to filter at the minute while I talk, and we'll just run along here, keeping it nice and steady. Football stadium there here in Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah, look at the cloudy skies, and it's warmish. You know, it's 24 degrees, so it feels warm today, but it's that kind of warm and muggy kind of feeling you get with this kind of more sort of dampy kind of climate with all the clouds kicking around. So I've got the touring screen on this as well. It's not got the standard screen on now. I asked the dealership to post me the standard screen back, and they're doing that. It should be delivered sometime later today, I think. And that will give me the opportunity to kind of switch between them. This is not bad actually. If I have it down at the lowest level, it does let enough wind through. At the minute I think it's about 2/3 up, which just makes it that little even. Well, I should have actually cleaned it really, shouldn't I, so you could see through it better with the camera. But apart from me not cleaning it and you not being able to see anything right now, which which I apologise for, it does keep the wind off the microphone. So when I'm on the Multistrada at the minute, that screen, the stock screen on that, doesn't really in any setting keep the wind off the microphone. So there's a lot of resistance on the camera, and particularly with this little plug-in camera wireless receiver with the DJI mic thing, I think takes a bit of a battering with all of the the wind resistance on it, and with this that doesn't happen, so that's a good thing. Today I'll be, well, actually I say today, I'm not sure, at some point over the course of the next 2 or 3 days I'm supposed to be receiving also the Palmer Products screen mount bracket for the Multistrada. Today I received, just before I set off, I got the Garmin mount for this sat nav and the cable for the XT2 sat nav, so that I can also use this one on this KTM but also on the Multistrada, so I don't have to faff around with that fairly old Ducati one that I've got currently on there. And the benefit of that, and I mean the benefit really of having luggage, tank bags, sat navs, phone mounts, whatever, that go if you've got multiple bikes, allowing you just to have one of or one set of those things so that you can transfer them across from one bike to the other. It is really, really beneficial. It's like at the minute I've got 2 different tank bags, so if I'm coming out one bike I have to move everything from one tank bag to the other, and then the same with luggage. You know, at the minute I've got the original Ducati sort of plastic cases on the Multistrada, and I am wondering whether I could get the same metal framework put on there that works, you know, for Touratech for these cases, so that I can just have one set of cases in use. Don't always put the panniers on. I'm sort of doing a bit of a test run on them because, as I say, I had a bit of a problem trying to get some of those latches to lock, and the dealer said, oh well, when they're new you've got to really press them and twist hard on the key and stuff, and it just, that answer just didn't feel right to me. And as I say, I sort of discovered that it's because, and the way I discovered it was I tried the case backwards way round on the other side and it fit perfectly well, no problems, it just locked straight away. So I kind of realised that there must be something with the frame itself, the shape of it, and it's just where they bring the 2 tubes together at the top to make the full loop, and they weld it, and it's just slightly higher on one side of those 2 sides of that tube, which is just pressing up against the latch and not allowing it to close down properly. So if I can do something with that, I'm not going to file it or anything because that will take away the whatever anodized coating they've got on it, but I'll try and do something where I can tap it a little bit. I already did a little bit of that on the roadside there with one of those plastic coated wheel locks, which allowed me just to get it locked to be able to carry on my journey. Now got something in my eye, like an eyelash or something, which is always a bit of a pain when you're out on the bike. Well, it's always a bit of a pain at any time, but it's even worse when you're out on the bike. So we're in Sheffield, in South Yorkshire, in England, and we're just sort of heading out towards Chesterfield. As long as the weather doesn't sort of become torrentially rainy, I'll still stick about if it just rains because I've got all of the rucker gear on. So we just change your gloves and pulling the little kind of neck thing across should make me sort of fairly water resistant. So I also had the heated grips fitted on this. They work, and the heated seat I put on, wired in. Think it works. I'm not entirely sure that I've got that working right. It's kind of, at this time of year, the seat is fairly warm anyway from the engine. So it's sort of hard to work out, is it warm from the engine or is it warm because I've switched on and tried the heated seat. It's certainly come up on the dash there and it shows that it goes to different levels. So I'm guessing it's okay, but I can't be absolutely sure. Seems to be a lot of emergency vehicles moving about today on the roads. Always a bit heavy with traffic here in the centre of Sheffield. Cars just creeping out at junctions like this taxi was behind me there. Always frustrating because you never quite know if they're going to clip you or not. So I do apologise that my timing of recording this video hasn't really aligned with me being out and about in the countryside to show you better riding, so I'll have to do a different video, I think, to show you that at some point, subject to the battery not going by that point on this. I might be able to skip ahead and just record a little bit of that, but I think I'm a good 20 minutes away before we get to any kind of the other side of Sheffield where the roads start to open up a bit. So what else have I got to tell you about this bike? It's got things on it like the radar controlled adaptive cruise control, which is similar to the Ducati Multistrada V4, and I have had all the tech pack, as they call it, enabled, so all of those additional features that costs, I don't know, somewhere just over £1,000 to enable that. And it's got, as I say now, it's got heated grips on, but they were an accessory, so you had to pay a sort of additional charge for those. Heated seat, same again, accessory, pay. Obviously you've seen the luggage at the beginning, assuming the cameras worked and assuming we're recording. And got the separate GPS on. I think it does some sort of, I think it maybe just turn by turn type stuff by connecting your phone, but I'm always going to have a separate GPS because I don't like the idea of kind of multi-layering jobs that the phone has to do. And from what I hear, although, you know, it would be worth trying it out maybe at some point, but from what I hear, those things don't seem to be quite as reliable as having the separate GPS. And it gives me obviously all the information down there on the really big display that there is. Now I've got it set at the minute to sort of like night mode all the time, so it's in this dark mode. There is the opportunity, just like with the Multistrada, to say I want to set it in a automatic mode, so it's like light during the day, dark during the night. That's one of those frustrating things as well, is when you indicate right to move into the middle lane and the car behind you then slows right down just at the point where you cannot move and keeps in that position. Right, so we're going into the... Where are we going into now? I actually feel quite hungry. Could just almost have something to eat before I get to CMC Motorcycles. What should we have today? This is kind of the part of the fun for me of going out on the bike, is, you know, planning, or not necessarily planning, but just doing things like grabbing some food somewhere. And that's why I like to have luggage with me on the bike, because I can use decent squared off surfaces, you know, as a bit of, it's almost like a mobile cafe type thing. well, not a mobile cafe, but a mobile table that you can put your drinks on and your food on and stuff. And of course those aluminium boxes are useful. I haven't tried this out with these Touratech ones, but I remember when I had the BMW R1200 GS, a couple of different ones, and I had the aluminium panniers fitted to those. Also tried the plastic ones at the time, but far better with the aluminium ones, because you know, you could go like say camping, you could use one as a table, you could use one as a little seat. They were pretty strong, those boxes that came with the GS. Don't know what they're like nowadays on the latest versions. Maybe they're the same, maybe they're different, but I have to see if these have that same, quite the same level of strength. At a glance they look a little bit thinner to me than the, not quite sure where that person was going there. At a glance look a little bit thinner to me, so maybe not quite as rigid and strong as the old GS ones were. Now the exhaust does have a reasonable little tone to it when you get a bit of throttle in, like that. Does have a nice tone to it. Not quite the same as the Multistrada, have to say, but then again, you know, it isn't like it's a full race exhaust system. Maybe if it was a little bit more like that, you'd have a bit more sound with it. Get to the other side of the diamond box. Cover the old horn in case he goes into reverse for some bizarre reason. We buy all gold. Yes, would you like to buy my gold? I've got £50 million worth, thank you. Look at the state of these roads around here, and actually the suspension on this is really pretty good. You know, I mentioned in the previous video how good the Ducati Multistrada 1260 Skyhook suspension is. This isn't that far behind that, actually. This is almost on a par with that suspension. It is pretty good, actually. And bearing in mind that when I test rode the V4s, I didn't think the suspension was... Well, it's certainly on the two models that I tried, the Rally and the Standard S, if I can call it the Standard S. The suspension seemed to me to be hard in whichever setting I went in. And in this it is just way better. Way better. And on a bike like this, you really do want the suspension to be really good. You don't want to be like, from the minute you get on it, regretting that you've got the wrong bike, because the suspension reminds you all the time on a bike. If it isn't right, you absolutely know about it all the time. It nags at you. Every bump, you know it's not the right suspension. Right, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to just clip out a bit of this video now until we get to more bike-friendly roads. Right then, well, I actually forgot that this route is pretty much dual carriageways right the way in. And so there ain't much yet of biking roads coming this way. We'll have to go back a different way, but I didn't... well, actually I can check. I'm not sure whether I brought with me my spare batteries. Actually, I probably did for the camera, so I might be able to record some footage of riding on those kinds of roads, which is always way better than riding on these kinds of roads. But at least this is giving me the opportunity to test that the sound is still working, because it's a little bit breezier now, a little bit of a crosswind coming in, which of course the screen can't stop. Got the visor open about an inch, so you probably are hearing some wind noise on the old microphones. And I think what I'm going to do is just go and grab a McDonald's just up the road here. I think that's what I'm going to do. Just come in here. Don't know what lane to be in here, but it isn't the one I'm in. Right, slow it down. Slow it down. There's the old McDonald's just on the other side of this big roundabout. So anyway, if I do a bit of a ride on the other side, I'll tag it onto the end of this video. If I don't, I'll say thank you very much for watching so far this video, and more videos to come through the course of the summer on both this, the KTM 1290 Adventure S, and also the Multistrada 1260S, and maybe test riding one or two other bikes if I can get dealerships to behave themselves and let me do that. We will see, won't we? Thanks for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye for now.